Hi there, my name is Lee McQueen, and in honor of Hillary Clinton's coronation at the Democratic National Convention, I'm pivoting because that's what the Clintons like to do. And if they're watching this video, I want them to feel right at home. So I'm pivoting away from ballot access back to the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership. I'm reading an article online that was written from a European standpoint. We know what most people in the United States think, but it's interesting to get the European perspective of both of these trade deals. Europe is paying very close attention to what's going on with the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is further in the process than the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership. TPP is about 3, 4, 5 years ahead of the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership. So, Trans-Pacific Partnership, the agreement with the Asian countries and Mexico and Canada and New Zealand and Australia, countries like that on the Pacific. That deal is further along. I mean, it's been signed by Barack Obama. It needs ratification by a majority in both of the houses of Congress. And so that's a big old controversy. No one could miss all those no TPP signs at the Democratic National Convention. Certainly Elijah Cummings couldn't. But maybe by the time Hillary Clinton took the stage, they'd all been beat down with the bad stick by the security. You didn't see so many signs when Hillary Clinton was there, because it might hurt her feelings, and we can't have that. But anyway, it's good to get the European perspective on these trade deals. They're very much watching the TPP because it's going to indicate how to proceed with the TTIP, which is the European Union and the United States. And so, since they're a few years behind, it's using TPP as an indicator of what to expect. And I will say this, that there's more vigorous opposition to TTIP in the European Union than we've seen with the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And I think it's because the standards are higher in the European Union than they are in the United States. So the people in the European Union have more to lose than we do. Therefore, they're more exercised. They're out in the streets. They're Brexiting. The fact that the United Kingdom actually left the European Union rather than participate in this agreement shows you the high level of mega corporate, megalomaniac, mega complex. The opposition is very high to these deals in the European Union. They do not want to eat our frankenfood. They do not want to have our labor standards. They don't want our environmental standards. Their standards are higher, so why would they want ours? And so that's why they're just protesting, and there's a lot of resistance. They would have to lower They would have to lower their standards in order to participate, and they're thinking like, no, maybe we won't do that. And it may not just be the United Kingdom that does the Brexit. This TTIP actually threatens Germany's renewable energy industry because of the forced equal access to particular types of energy. They lose control of their, individual states lose control of their energy policies. And lots more. Their food safety, all kinds of things. And they're not ready to do that. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, we see a lot of resistance in the United States. There's resistance in some of the Asian countries too, but it seems like the opposition is highest in the United States. And that's because, like with the European Union in connection to the United States, where their standards are higher, our standards in the United States are higher than certain countries in the Pacific, like Malaysia. And if they're normalizing all these regulations, it might cause us to kind of have lower standards for environment and consumer protection and food safety and public health that people just will not tolerate. And so there's resistance here in the United States. Specifically with the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the real problem, and there are many, but some of the problems include just a lack of transparency, which is a knock on our president, Barack Obama, who ran as a progressive and won the confidence of the United States voting electorate. Because he ran as a progressive, he ran as a transparent president, and then there's been a lot of criminalization of whistleblowers who've had to go to extremes in order to ensure that the public in the United States actually had access to vital information. In fact, Barack Obama may be the least transparent president that we've ever had. So the lack of transparency, the fact that these agreements were negotiated in kind of an undemocratic way. There was consultation with corporations and lobbyists for these corporations during the architecture of these agreements. Well, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, of which Hillary Clinton, as the Secretary of the State Department, she was involved with those negotiations, and Hillary Clinton tends to favor corporations over people. And so corporate lobbyists were consulted. They had access to these agreements and the provisions included in the agreements. But consumer groups, not so much. Taxpayer organizations, unions, healthcare professionals, environmentalists, and human rights groups, they did not have the same access as corporate lobbyists. And so many people consider that undemocratic. And just the high level of secrecy regarding these agreements and the provisions inside of the agreements. The fact that even members of Congress who voted to fast track this agreement, many of them had limited access to actually understand what the agreement was, what they were even fast tracking. And that includes Tim Kaine, who voted to fast track the agreement, and then now he's saying that he doesn't support it. So, yeah, they barely had access, and then now they still barely have access, and it's the members of Congress who are needed to vote to ratify it. And even, if they read it, they're bound to secrecy. They can't really discuss the specifics of the provision in the public sphere. And so it's kind of, again, undemocratic, the urge to pass this agreement, and the fact that Barack Obama is slithering and snaking around trying to get this agreement passed in the lame duck session on his way out of office, so he doesn't have to be accountable for what he's done. And then certain members of Congress who are maybe retiring or going out or stepping down from their seats, he's hoping to pass it among them, so they're not accountable either. That's how he's hoping to gather up sufficient votes. And so it's just very bad, dirty, nasty pool is what Barack Obama is playing. And Hillary Clinton is a participant, I do believe, since she was one of the architects of this agreement. And Tim Kaine voted to fast track it. So there's the secrecy around it, and that the fact that the interests of the major corporations who are involved with this agreement, their interests seem to take precedence over the interests of the general populations that are affected and the citizens. So it's pro-corporations, it's anti-citizen, this agreement. And the fact that the fast tracking means that there's very limited discussion. Well, actually, no debate in the fast tracking. If Barack Obama sends it to Congress, if he's trying to do that after lame duck, that fast track means no debate, no amendments, nothing. It's, let's get it done. And bye, see ya at Hillary's inauguration. Congratulations. So that's how just crazy the events surrounding this agreement, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, are. And so the reason why Trans-Pacific Partnership seems to be moving on at a faster clip than the TTIP, and that the resistance is so much higher in the European Union than even here in the United States and with Asia, with the TPP, is that the fact that the labor environment and consumer standards are actually lower in Asia. So there's more resistance here in the United States than in Asia, because in some instances, the Trans-Pacific Partnership would actually lift up their regulation standards. That's how bad things are in terms of consumer protection, environmental protection, and then worker and labor standards. So it would be a detriment to the United States, but it would be a benefit to certain countries in Asia. So, but basically this article is saying that the benefits of the Trans-Pacific Partnership are overstated often, and that the drawbacks are often understated. And the thing is, there are several factors that are contributing to the resistance to the Trans-Pacific Partnership. We've been here before. While NAFTA was something unprecedented in the United States, we had no way to measure it against anything previously, and we were kind of charmed by Bill Clinton as he double-fisted it through Congress, and then voila, 25 years later, now we know better. In the meantime, since NAFTA, we've had chance to study the effects, and then, we've had a resistance when it comes to trade and economic policy on a very large scale. I mean, we had the battle in Seattle. I think that was around 1999 during a WTO meeting. We've had the 2008 financial crisis. We had Occupy Wall Street. We've had Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. And a lot of populist, anti-free trade discussion during the course of the political campaign, and an emphasis on populism. And so there's more resistance now, because we didn't know, even when Ross Perot told us exactly what was going to happen with NAFTA, and he spelled it out very clearly. People said, nah, it couldn't be that bad. And besides, Bill Clinton plays the saxophone. Ross Perot was very clear. And now we can look back and say, oh, he was right. So now people are more open to listening to warnings, and the warnings are getting through. We've also had the Korean trade agreement, the FTA, ruination of North American industry, manufacturing, the offshoring and outsourcing of our jobs. We've seen all of this. And so we're kind of a population that's now better educated and very keen on these trade deals. And it's not looking good for Trans-Pacific Partnership. And also we have the internet. We actually had we have the very beginnings of the internet about 1992, 93, 94, during the NAFTA era. Some people were on it, some weren't. Some people had access to share information. Others had to depend on what the mainstream media was telling them. And what the mainstream media was telling people was what the Clintons told them. And so there was no way to, kind of work around Clinton dominance of the media. Now we have social media where people can say, well, let's consider more opinions surrounding these trade deals and communicate with each other and kind of see, hey, what do you think? And then see, a bunch of thumbs down. So that's the benefit that we have today. We have the benefit of hindsight. We have the benefit of better communication, and then knowledge of what's going on in other parts of the world. But worst of all with these trade deals is the ISDS, International State, okay, I forget what those stand for, but it's the provision where the foreign mega multinational corporations can bypass our court system, our domestic court system, and then instead of using our court system to settle disputes over profits and how government regulation might affect these profits of the corporations, our domestic court system will not rule in those issues. It's going to be an international tribunal that rules in those issues, an investor tribunal. And so people are saying with the ISDS that there's too much protection for investors, not sufficient protection for consumers, and certainly not for workers and for the environment and for human rights and things like that. So many people look at the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership as a race to the bottom. That's how it's described. A race to the bottom on climate policy, energy and environmental policy, on food safety, food regulation, and then copyright, data protection, intellectual property, public procurement, and then labor standards and the cost of pharmaceuticals. And so the resistance has grown to these trade deals, even as the trade deals have continued to overreach and be dominated by corporations. The resistance has also increased, and we're looking to the point that the United Kingdom decided to leave the European Union over elite dominance of foreign economic policy. And so that's one of the extreme reactions. And so, the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, the resistance to that is dominated by the European Union, and it may send settlement of that agreement 5 years into the future. That's how high resistance is, if at all. And they're looking at the Trans-Pacific Partnership to see if it can even be done, seeing what the trends are. And there's just a lot of double talking on Trans-Pacific Partnership where people are saying, well, she's really, Hillary Clinton, she's really for it, and no, she's not. But yeah, sure she is. She's just saying that. So we're getting a lot of double talk in the media, and from Hillary Clinton herself. Lots of mixed messages, lots of mixed signals, and so people don't have a good feeling about the intentions of our federal government, executive branch, when it comes to the Trans-Pacific Partnership, as well as Congress, who have proven kind of unreliable when it comes to consumer protection. And the GMO DART bill is only one example. But I've noticed a trend in a lot of recent writing that there's a lot of baiting when it comes to the TPP, that China is going to use to terrorize us into allowing the TPP to proceed. There's a lot of China baiting and attempts to scare us, because if we don't pass this Pacific trade deal, China's going to establish its own trade arrangements and become dominant in the Pacific, and we'll lose out. So again, I think it's our own government working against us, gaslighting us, bullying, trying to bait us. It's just not a good deal, this Trans-Pacific Partnership. And the fact that we're not allowed to really get an up close and personal look at the documents themselves, at the negotiations, the fact that we can't add amendments and debate it, not good. That's not democratic at all. So I'm gonna put a link into the description with this specific article and let people see what they think about it. We already know that corporations view NAFTA as a great success. They made a lot of money. And for them, if there's a lot of money involved, hey, then the policy was a great success. We got richer, so it's great. And so I think that's how Trans-Pacific Partnership is viewed. Now, who doesn't make the money? The U.S. worker. Who's affected negatively? The citizens. And so it's viewed as not so great. NAFTA's been strongly panned by most citizens. It's kind of, what your perspective is. And for most citizens, they do not want Trans-Pacific Partnership. And neither do they want TTIP. Good thing is we have some breathing room and some help from the European Union to stall or stop the TTIP while we deal with the TPP. All right.